there's spiritual forces invisible to us that are working through people in this world. And just because someone is a so-called Christian doesn't mean they're serving God. And just because someone is a Muslim doesn't mean they're serving the devil. There are non-powerful people who are Freemasons,
Yes.
but there are no powerful people who are not Freemasons. The Cornerstone Lodge in New York, which is a very famous lodge. People like Jay-Z, go there and whatnot. It's, it's
Jay-Z's a Mason?
yeah. From my understanding, he was with that lodge as well, but higher than I was. It's an initiation to kind of what I felt was being observed and watched, and I know it was watched because after doing the first degree initiation, where you get the blindfold and the noose and all this stuff is online. I'm not revealing some secrets. All the phrases and things, the geometry of it, where you have to walk, certain directions and points and say certain things. All that's online now. It's public. But when you perform it ritualistically like a play, there are other forces that are not human that are engaging in the experience. And I know that because when I was leaving the lodge that night with my friend, we got a phone call, and it was an unknown number. And this sort of husky voice was on the phone, and he was like, "How was the meeting?" And I was like, "It's an interesting game you guys have going here." And it's like, And we were just talking a bit, saying a lot of things that were like biblical, 40 days in the cave, some stuff that I didn't understand. But I knew that they were watching me because I was walking back to my apartment in New York. And I'm like, "Oh, so you're watching me?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, what am I doing?" He's like, "You're walking." So I stopped walking. And I'm like, "Oh yeah?" He's like, "Yeah, you stopped walking." And I was like, "Okay, it could be a guess, but let's just go, continue the conversation, go upstairs." And I had like a gray shirt on and black pants. And after, I started recording the conversation. The audio did not record subsequently, only the video recorded. But as I was recording this, it was this man's voice, and then it would be a woman that would take over. So it was like two voices. It was one as a man, one as a woman. And then she basically said, "Stop recording." And I was like, I didn't stop. I would maybe like stop for a minute, then I turn it back on. And I had at that time I had it was a Islamic sword that I had as a necklace. And so I was taking my shirt off, and she's like, "Put your shirt back on." I was like, "Oh, you don't like this symbol, or what's wrong?" And it was like, "Put your shirt back on." And I'm like, we just continued to talk, but there were a few things that I remember distinctly, including her saying, "I'll leave you with this. You're wearing a gray shirt with black pants." So something had been observing me that night, and they continued to talk with me. And it was essentially, they texted me thereafter, and it was like, it went on for an hour or so, like off and on. My friend who took me there got really sick to his stomach. He was like vomiting actually after that, during that same time that I was on the phone. And he really was like physically out of it. And so I was conversing with these things for like an hour. And again, a lot of it was about the fallen angels, because this goes back to, again, the jinn, the unseen world, the idea that, remember, the Book of Enoch talks about this, that the fall basically is not just Lucifer's. It's like Lucifer and the 300 or 3,000, the 300, I think, that fell. But a lot of it had to do with the origin of like how the angels fell in love with human women, right? That's the story of Enoch, was that
Yes.
They fell in love with human women. They had children, the Nephilim, the fallen ones, or also, I guess they're also fallen ones. And this whole bloodline war, basically, of like, fallen angels having children with human women and becoming like the great leaders of old, the
Men of renown.
The men of renown, exactly. The leaders of the military and the emperors or kings of the time, royal bloodlines. So all this came up that night.
What's interesting is if you bring up that story from Enoch, and it's alluded to in Genesis 6 as well, people look at you like that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Where does that come from? Is that like a David Icke concept or something? But then if you just assess it non-emotionally, that's pretty much every religion tells that story, including Christianity.
Right.
Jesus is the product of spirit and a human woman,
Right.
God and Mary. So the Greek myths are the same.
Alexander his mother said that Zeus came to her.
Exactly.
Um,
So I'm not,
yeah.
I mean, that's not proof, but it's certainly an indication this is not like a crazy new theory that David Icke thought up.
Not at all. And that's why I always say
It's like
people,
the basis of every religion.
Yeah, but that's why people get so, they want you to think about Icke as like he's the crazy guy. But that's why I studied history, because I wanted to say, no, Icke is just picking up on old traditions and he's just listening to people that are telling him stories, which I think
you can hear that story in any church in the United States every Sunday.
Exactly.
So, right. So
Exactly.
it's not, conceptually, it's not a departure from what people have thought for thousands of years, that there is the physical reality of actors from the spiritual realm impregnating human women.
Right, right. And going again, I mean, even the Anunnaki texts of the Sumerians before, which predates the Old Testament, talking about exactly this thing about the Anunnaki sky gods creating the first humans as their workers. And, and again, like the flood mythology comes from that,
Right. That God was so displeased by the behavior of the Nephilim that he destroyed the world.
Right.
And their behavior that he specifically called out was violence.
Right, right. And eating of humans, the Nephilim did. Remember?
Really?
Oh yeah. The giants ate the humans. Do you remember?
That's in the Book of Enoch.
It's in one of them. It's either, I mean, I thought it was in the Bible, but it's definitely in Enoch then, because that was the issue, that the giants were eating people. So this, then takes us to the very, present day of, when the lore around demons drinking human blood, or like, demon possessed humans drinking human blood, Dracula mythology, right? I mean,
Yes.
This is all, it's drawn upon the old world, but when Hunter S. Thompson talks about adrenochrome and people say, oh, he made that up. And I go, yeah, except I talked to a military intelligence guy who goes, adrenochrome is real because it comes across our messaging boards all the time. Adrenochrome is being trafficked into the country.
So adrenochrome is a compound from the human adrenal gland. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is it's like an adrenaline. Basically, it's adrenaline that gets secreted and from, like, obviously adrenaline from anxiety, from stress, from fear. And it's, it's something specifically that is being used for, as a drug, or is it demonic food? I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I've personally experienced, but, it's like we're connecting the ancient world to the modern world. And it seems to be, if it's one long thread, we can't just ignore that.